Okay, hi there, my name is George McGregor. I'm based at the Scholarly Publications and Research Data team at the University of Strathclyde, and I'm also chair of the Rioxx governance group, and I'm here to present a brief contribution on enhancing discovery and enriching the scholarly graph with the Research Outputs Metadata Schema Rioxx. This will just be a brief contribution outlining some of the changes in the latest version of Rioxx. I realise though that not everyone will know what Rioxx is, so a quick bit of background. It was originally an OAI-PMH metadata application profile for UK repositories, and it was created to support the first major UK open access policy almost 10 years ago. The schema was also supported a little bit by JISC, who supported the technical rollout of the schema to many repositories. Version 2 of the schema is supported by many UK repositories and has demonstrated particular harvesting and aggregation benefits for services like core. The other interesting aspect is that Rioxx has also facilitated a level of OpenAIRE participation by UK repositories, something that was historically problematic. Fast forward to today, and the schema is maintained by the UK Confederation of Open Research and Repositories and its governance group for the schema. And the raison d'etre of the Rioxx governance group was to update the schema, optimize it, bearing in mind its discovery potential, so maintaining that, but also better improving the capture and modeling of graph relations within the scholarly universe. To that end, version 3, the release candidate has been made available, and there's links there, and there'll be links in the video description, and I would encourage everyone to take a look at that. But let's look at some examples. There were obviously a lot of housekeeping tasks that were quite perfunctory in the schema, but there have been a whole load of improvements, and I would encourage people to look at that. For the purposes of this contribution, we're just going to look at some examples where there has been some significant change, and those changes may be of interest to some of the viewers here. So let's look at DC identifier and DC relation. And really what we see here is superior modeling of the associative relationships that we might expect to see between scholarly entities. And we're doing this by harnessing greater use of persistent identifiers, and also by reusing semantics from other schemes, in particular schema.org, and we'll see an example of that. But on this slide, you can see that identification of scholarly outputs can get quite complicated. We have the DY pointing to the splash page on the repository. We have a URI pointing to the version of record typically published by the scholarly publisher. And then we have DC relation, where in Rioxx we're communicating the associative relationships to other scholarly entities. And here we see an example of that within Rioxx version 3, that we're communicating not only these relations using the creative work vocabulary defined in schema.org, but also different expressions of the same scholarly work. Schema.org here is a useful tool to use because it's an extensive, widely interpretable vocabulary for most work types. And of course, once the data is aggregated and merged with existing data, it has the potential to greatly enrich the formal PID graph, but also enhance user discovery of related research entities, most notably other expressions of the research work, other research entities, datasets, software, and so forth. This greatly, I suppose, reduces the need for inference and computational resource. We also encode the deposit and exposure date to track the evolution of open access and to improve harvesting efficacy. We can see a similar treatment in our approach to grants and projects. This is historically an area where semantics have been confused within scholarly metadata schema, including in Rioxx version 2, where the idea of grants and projects is often conflated, and this is an error that's corrected in Rioxx version 3. And it's also an issue that I think has gained wider recognition with the Research Activity Identifier scheme, which has really highlighted that projects can last for many, many years and receive many, many grants. And so this is something that is separated out in Rioxx, and there's superior communication and definition of grant entities via, you know, the attributes and the grant PIDs. Going forward, you know, work by Peter North and colleagues at CORE, but also beyond, has found high levels of harvesting efficacy with Rioxx compliant repositories. This is obviously something that we hope to maintain with version 3, but also there's encouragement from CORE because there is greater relational potential and better ways of communicating research output type semantics. CORE has always supported a Rioxx metadata validator for version 2, and this is something that they're going to be looking towards for version 3. And you know, this is going to be very necessary because you know, there's a new open access policy within the UK, and Rioxx version 3 can potentially play a part in that, you know, in supporting that particular policy. That gets to the end of the video. Further information on the schema is here. The GitHub repository is there, so please comment, raise issues, and help us formalize this particular release, references, and other author affiliations.